Hello, everyone, and welcome to this LinkedIn Live from HANNOVER MESSE 2025. Today, we're going to discuss smart operations in the manufacturing sector with AWS. My name is Ajai Vasudevan, and I'm the Global Smart Operations Leader for Deloitte. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues, Steve Blackwell from AWS and Nishita Henry. Steve, Nishita, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for having me here. As said, I'm Steve Blackwell. I lead our Manufacturing Center of Excellence at Amazon Web Services. I've been with Amazon for 7 years now, but been in manufacturing the whole of my career.
And I'm Nishita Henry. I'm our Global Chief Commercial Officer for Deloitte for our Amazon relationship. And in my prior role, I was our U.S. Innovation Leader, where I got to help set up the Wichita Smart Factory. So manufacturing, automation, industrials are near and dear to my heart.
Okay, let's dive in. Nishita, how does fostering a culture of innovation within an organization contribute to its long-term success and competitive advantage in the market?
I mean, at the end of the day, if you're not innovating, somebody else is. And so if you want to continue to be a thriving organization, you want to attract the best talent, you want to set the standard within the industry, you want to have the best competitive advantage, you have to innovate, right? However, innovation is hard in a large organization because people get used to what they're doing, they see successes, and change is difficult. So it's really important that organizations deliberately bake in innovation into the core of their business in order for the entire organization to live that culture. That's why I love working with AWS so much, because it is one of your guiding principles, right, Steve?
Yeah.
And so doing that helps you to continue to maintain that competitive advantage. So maybe you can talk a little bit about innovation and the aftermarket services and what your organization is doing to stay ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, Amazon has a culture of innovation, and we talk about working backwards from the customer. Whatever Amazon builds, right through to our AWS's cloud services, and we take that culture of innovation to our customers and really kind of try and help them kind of innovate on behalf of their customers. And this is very much so in kind of the aftermarket kind of area. Manufacturers traditionally have built a product and they've sold that product, and maybe they haven't had a relationship with the customer after that, there may be a third party, and really helping them kind of innovate and think, how can they build, additional services, kind of capabilities, extend their brand to be able to kind of own that relationship with the customer to be able to drive new revenue.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I would say that, some of the things we have to innovate on is not just the product, right?
No.
But the service or the customer experience itself,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many different elements of innovation.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do every single one, but you do have to figure out which one or two you're going to set the standard in, right?
Yeah. I mean, as we know, it's a global market, it's a competitive market. So manufacturers have to differentiate themselves against their competitors, and customer loyalty, is really kind of key, as part of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it, right? Customer loyalty is so intricately linked with the aftermarket and the product. All these three things have to continue to keep going together. That's why innovation is so core to the growth of the aftermarket business and the production and the manufacturing environment as well.
I mean, as a customer, right, you want to know that you've bought a quality product, but things go wrong. So you want to know that you can get that fixed quickly, you can get the attention you need, you can get it at the right time at the right place. And so the coordination across the entire supply chain to enable aftermarket is so important.
Yeah.
And as we talk about that coordination, of course, AI and GenAI are going to play a big part. So you want to talk a little bit about how you're incorporating that into your aftermarket services?
Yeah, sure. I mean, from an AWS perspective, AI or generative AI is kind of key to how we helping our customers, and it goes from particular services like Amazon Connect and having AI system built into it to now actually have those automatic agents to help manufacturing customers be able to get the best capability out of their products themselves, sentiments analysis, but also to your point just now, how manufacturers can take AI, agentic AI, and kind of build it into their aftermarket services so they can understand how customers are using those products, so they can take it back to, the engineers. So when they're innovating, and building the new features of the next generation of that product, they're not just going from theory or, marketing information, they're actually going from real life data of how the customers are using it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this feedback loop is so important, right? The
Yeah.
ability to take the data from the aftermarket into the engineering and then coming back and innovating the product further and bringing it back into the market. I think
Yeah.
this ability of the data as well as agentic tools and agents that are going back and thinking through how you
Yeah.
use the data to really make decisions is becoming more and more critical.
I mean, data continues to be the heart of the business, right?
Absolutely.
We've talked about this for many years. We've talked about consolidating data, data lakes, data analytics. But what GenAI is helping us do, and AI is helping us skip through some of those
Absolutely.
steps. But it's fundamental for organizations to understand that they have to know and get their data in order for them to use these things,
Yeah.
in full fulfillment.
Yeah, and AI and GenAI provides lots of advantages, but at the same time, the challenges that exist, right? The investment that needs to go into technology, investment that needs to go into uplifting legacy systems is something that organizations should not forget about it. To your point, Nishita, data is so core to everything, and to your point, that's really how AWS and some of our other partners are really leveraging the data and coming out and talking through how do you take this forward, how do you really make the decision, right?
Yeah.
That's why investing in your technology asset, investing in your people is going to become more and more critical, right?
Yeah.
Which leads me to a very interesting thought and a question for you, both of you. How are organizations really investing, and where should organizations really invest in people and processes to really, how are they really taking these decisions today, whether it's in the form of where they need to go from new investments in AI and Gen AI, or upgrading their legacy systems and thinking through technology's role as they go forward, specifically as it applies to aftermarket. Any thoughts on that?
Steve?
Yeah, I mean, as we know, manufacturing in general has got a labor, or more specifically, a skill shortage. Also, the typical employee is not spending 15, 20 years in that organization. It's 2, 3 years. And specifically to aftermarket, when a maintenance engineer goes out and is doing some repairs to maybe a HVAC chiller or a turbine gas engine, they may not, have that 25 years of tribal experience. And really seeing kind of, with generative AI, you can enable that worker to have the right information at that time to be able to perform the operation, the maintenance
Spot on.
task that they actually need. But more specifically, we can actually use generative AI to actually capture what those workers and maintenance people are actually doing, to actually bring it back into the data set. So the next time an engineer has the same problem, it's not going to take them 30 minutes to fix. It may take
Absolutely.
them 5 minutes to fix because they're now informed and have the information.
Yeah. And I think the other important part is, you're enabling your field service experts in a way you haven't been able to before, but you're also able to automate a lot of the back end things. Maybe it's reordering,
Yeah.
maybe it's actually updating quality and data specs, right? Whatever those things that have to happen, you now have agents that can help automate that stuff and let the people do the things that are most important to
Absolutely.
the end customer. And so I think organizations are going to have to learn how to handle humans and agents as a collective group, right? And that's a new thing for us.
Yeah.
And it's exciting to talk about because I think oftentimes we have this fear that it's agents or people. It's always an and, right? It's agents and people.
on.
And how can we best collaborate and integrate that for the benefit of us all?
No, absolutely. There's no doubt about that. There's absolutely no doubt about the ability to. I love the way you said it, right? It's the agents and the people. It's not one or the other. Integrating them is going to be becoming very, very critical for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So can I ask, what's the benefit of integrating kind of, aftermarket into the core, business applications, for manufacturers?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it goes back to data and information, right? If you have more data and information on what is the aftermarket look like, what are people most, ordering or struggling with, what are people most replacing, you have more quality information to make your core product better, right? I also think there's new business opportunities. At the end of the day, right, will somebody always invest in brand new equipment? Not always, right? As budgets gets tighter, as economies change, right? People don't always want to be able to have to create net new big asset buys. So how can they upgrade their existing equipment, still get innovation, still get some of the new features and functions without buying brand new equipment? And that's where aftermarket can create a whole new business around helping customers to continue to grow, innovate, and take advantage of net new technology without having to start from scratch.
Oh, spot on, right? At the end of the day, as you integrate, as you grow your business, as you improve your profitability, like I was saying earlier, almost 50 to 60% of profits for some of our clients are actually coming from the aftermarket. Now, going back into your other point earlier, Steve, that you mentioned, right? The ability to create that feedback for a loop back mechanism to really improve your product gives that sense of reliability with our customers, right? And customers are going to start to think about, your clients are going to start to think about, hey, it's a more reliable product, which means
Yeah.
Your customer satisfaction is going to go up. Your ability to really come back and continue to improve the product is going to improve much
Yeah.
more, right? So I think this integrating this entire area is probably more critical, and making sure that we are able to maintain and sustain the growth of our organizations. Right?
Yeah.
Which comes back to like, hey, we got to have a strategy around where we want our business to go. We have to have the people and the processes to do it and the underlying technology that enables it, right? It's actually the core basics
Yeah.
that we always come back to, but we have to remember how to apply that in new and different ways.
You know, Steve, one question that goes through my head all the time is you talked about AI and GenAI, but out of curiosity, how do you think manufacturers can predict, plan, and position resources more effectively, right? Quite honestly, to meet customer needs in the aftermarket. Any thoughts on that? How you're seeing that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a lot of manufacturers, historically, they've looked at their data within the silos of the value chain. And now with kind of, clouds and the ability to bring data across that value chain together, they're starting to be able to use, advanced analytics, AI and Gen AI to actually start to get true visibility across that. And also bring in, information from outside of their, organizations, as a really bad example, seasonality, can be a huge effect of, when a particular, product is being used or when it's not being used. And therefore, you can be, a manufacturer could be proactive in going, hey, you're not using your fleet of X at the moment. How about we come and service it now rather than actually, having them out of service and therefore you're not getting any usage from them and revenue.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and I think the entire supply chain, given the complexity of it, right? You've got folks that are making small components to people who are assembling those components, and there can be thousands of people in that chain. And being able to use information, data, Gen AI can help those supply chains adapt more agilely because we know how long those things take. We've had history of it during COVID, right? During other times of economic disruption. How do we get those supply chains to move in a more flexible manner?
No, absolutely. You know, as supply chains become more complex, as macroeconomic conditions come in, like you're saying, data, more importantly, how you use the data in
yeah,
the aftermarket becomes even more critical. And the ability to deploy this data in an efficient manner is going to become more and more critical,
yeah,
right?
But it's really data across everything and
Everything.
all of
yeah,
those players. Organizations can't silo their data anymore,
correct.
right? Their data, they have to be able to integrate that with
Yeah,
all of their upstream and downstream,
yeah,
connected organizations. And how do they share that? And how do they use agents across that to help them? That's going to be really where the excitement is, but also where the hard part is, because that requires collaboration across organizations.
And by the way, that collaboration is going to require you to upgrade your systems, think through the legacy import. I mean,
yeah,
it's this continuous momentum that's going on, and I strongly believe as we go forward, as product life cycles become longer and longer, aftermarket is going to become so critical, right,
yeah.
to each of our clients that it's going to become very, very important for them to continue to invest in data, in legacy systems, upgrading them, and going forward. Any case, thank you everyone for tuning in, and be sure to check out our latest report on smart operations within the manufacturing sector in the comment section.